What was your number one takeaway from the Seahawks win?
It was the lack of in-game adjustment by Josh McDaniels.
Oof.
By Josh McDaniel. I obviously everyone understands who the Seattle Seahawks are. They can pressure with 4. Mm-hmm. They don't bring a tremendous amount of additional pressures. They obviously did. You saw that. You know that your offense, specifically the left side of your offensive line, they're young, rookies. They struggle. They're going to struggle probably against this defensive front.
Right.
You would have thought, okay, we're going to have some type of adjustment just in case. Well, as the game starts to progress, we see they're starting to bring blitzes off of the slot receiver. Now, as a receiver, and Stephon Diggs did this a couple times just off of instinct, natural reaction is I peek hot. If somebody blitzes off my face, I'm going to give my quarterback an immediate outlet right now. We never saw any of that. So all of this idea of did the offensive line play poorly? Yes. Specifically the left side, the young guys, absolutely. Did Drake May play poorly? Yes. Josh McDaniels could have helped by saying, Drake, this is what we're going to do. We're going to make an adjustment. If they start to bring blitzes off the slot receiver, we're just going to hit them because the safety can't get there to help. Yeah. We're going to force them to adjust to us. And they were getting out of the huddle. That first possession, they were getting out of the huddle with 21 seconds on the play clock. That very first possession, I'm like, okay, they're giving Drake May enough time to assess what's going on, process things, make any adjustments that's needed, if needed. He gets sacked. He scrambles. It's 3rd and 9. They get out of the huddle late. They bring the first blitz with Witherspoon. And it's like you didn't even give him a chance to try to see it, make an adjustment, but it happened for the duration of the game. Yeah. There was no adjustment. And it blows my mind when coordinators or coaches say, we're going to get it at halftime. We're going to get it. No, you get to the sideline, and the first thing we grab is these iPads, and we look at it, and we say, okay, if we see this, this is what we're going to do. Make the adjustment now. We're professionals. You have to, this game is too important to wait. Like, you obviously got caught off guard. Counterpunch with something they never did. And I blame Josh McDaniels for that. Now, not solely and exclusively, right, but he deserves a lion's share of the blame for what we saw or the lack of what we saw offensively.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. We thought he would have the answers, right? This is 10th Super Bowl. We thought he'd have the answers for Drake May. He didn't. And Bill Barnwell made a great point in his article today about how they blitzed with Witherspoon, which they had not done a lot of this season. Right.
Yeah.
And to your point, he blitzed 7 times. Once he got a sack, and then once he got that, whatever you want to call it, where it was the interception turned into a pick 6.
Would have been another.
Yeah, so they never adjusted to that. So Drake did not play well. Receivers weren't really open, but there were times he just missed guys.
Yes.
Where guys were open, he overthrew them or underthrew them, then missed guys. And he held the ball long, too. Mm-hmm. But Josh did not help him out at all, did not provide him with any answers, which leads me to my biggest takeaway was just Seattle's defense. Because as I said earlier, Patriots defense was played well enough to win a Super Bowl. They only gave up 22 points. We know 5 field goals, only 1 touchdown, and that was on a short field after Drake had a turnover. But Seattle's defense was just so dominant, and being able to get pressure with 4 obviously means they could cover the receivers. And so now I don't put it statistically, and maybe it's one of the all-time great defenses. I don't put it like at the top, like the Ravens in 2000 or something. I don't put it in a group like that. But this defense was the story of the game.
Of course.
Patriots was good too. And the difference is the Patriots quarterback made mistakes, 3 turnovers, and couldn't generate any offense, somewhat because of McDaniels. And Seattle at least generated some degree of offense or enough to win the game.
Yeah, so I think maybe I'll make you feel a little better. Maybe not. You might get angrier. I'm not sure. But I'm not going to blame Josh McDaniels as much as you guys, because nobody could deal with that Seattle defense except for one coach-quarterback combo.
Correct.
And I know we spent a lot of last week discussing why can't Drake may do what Matt Stafford does, and the answer is because he can't yet.
Yeah.
Because he's not 37. He hasn't been in the league 15 years. He, as good as McDaniels is, he doesn't have Sean McVay. Puka and Devontae are not Diggs and Booty. And it's just, you just can't. Right. And the biggest reason I think we are not including Seattle amongst those all-time defenses is because the Rams beat them up a couple times. But when you look Baker, at, you know what, Baker, the one game, but Baker, everyone other than Stafford is 15 a game. It's 17 touchdowns, 21 picks. It's a 74 rating. And this is also where, like, it is no young quarterback succeed against Mike McDonald. They are now 1-10. They score less than 16 points a game. They have a 2 to 3 touchdown to turnover ratio. They have passer rating below 70. And any quarterback of any age, KW, the first time they see Mike McDonald's defense, gets beat up.
Yeah.
The inherent irony here is genuinely striking. It required approximately 40 minutes of broadcast time before the discourse substantively engaged with the Seattle Seahawks. The predominant focus remained fixated on the New England Patriots. This dynamic bears a distinct resemblance to my observation of last year's Super Bowl broadcast concerning the Philadelphia Eagles. On this occasion, the color commentator demonstrated a persistent effort to redirect attention towards Seattle, repeatedly interjecting to assert that credit must be accorded to their performance. This stood in stark contrast to the previous year's broadcast, which was overwhelmingly centered on the Kansas City Chiefs. I distinctly recall an interview where Tom Brady was queried about a specific moment, and his response pivoted to his own experience of losing a Super Bowl. The framing was peculiar. Why not reference his inaugural victory as a point of comparison for Jalen Hurts, rather than invoking the sentiment of defeat to relate to Patrick Mahomes? The entire editorial slant felt profoundly disoriented, and a significant segment of the contemporary media continues to perpetuate that same momentum. The central conclusion being drawn by many analysts strikes me as somewhat trivial. The unequivocal, paramount takeaway is this: the Seattle Seahawks were the premier team in the National Football League. A particular detractor, a devoted Kansas City Chiefs enthusiast, evidently grappling with his team's absence from the stage, continually challenged this assertion. His repeated taunt was, "Who's the best team in the NFL? Why don't you make another video and say it again?" Very well, consider this that video. The Seattle Seahawks are the best team in the NFL. They simply are. That is the definitive statement. This supremacy extends beyond any single individual. While Matthew Stafford performed admirably for the Rams in their playoff encounter, a substantial portion of their success against Seattle stemmed from Sean McVay's strategic capacity to attack that defense. The Rams also established an effective ground game. Crucially, recall that many points in that first matchup were precipitated by Sam Darnold turnovers. 4 interceptions, if memory serves. The Rams capitalized on abbreviated fields. Stafford's statistical output in that victory was relatively modest. The Rams embodied the archetype of a team whose sole path to defeat was self-inflicted error. Their locker room mantra had to be, "The only way we lose is by beating ourselves." I reiterated this principle incessantly in the lead-up to the Super Bowl. If the optimal version of the Seahawks confronted the optimal version of the Patriots, Seattle would prevail, and the margin would not be narrow. The reality we witnessed was not even the Seahawks' peak performance, and it certainly was not New England's. The result was a decisive, non-competitive contest. It was a coaching and execution masterclass by Seattle on both sides of the ball. The accumulation of subtle, critical plays was brilliant. A handful of significant throws from Sam Darnold, several explosive runs from Kenneth Walker, a pivotal reception from Cooper Kupp. It was arguably 4 or 5 big plays in a contextual sense, not necessarily 65-yard touchdowns, but momentum-sustaining conversions that ultimately facilitated a series of field goals. That was the requisite offensive output when paired with a defense that rendered the Patriots' offense inert. The critique that Josh McDaniels failed to make adequate adjustments or that he needed to scheme Stefon Diggs open more effectively overlooks a fundamental attribute of the Seahawks' defense: its exceptional closeout speed and collective athleticism. This was vividly displayed against the 49ers earlier in the season. The philosophy of, sure, complete that 5-yard pass and then witness the gain evaporate was operative. To assume Seattle would lack countermeasures if New England successfully executed a few such plays is naive. The more salient issue was that on the rare occasions when the Seahawks' coverage did break down, as even elite units inevitably do, Drake May failed to capitalize. There was a specific instance of blown coverage highlighted by the broadcast in the fourth quarter, where May simply missed the throw. When those vanishingly rare opportunities materialized, the Patriots could not convert. Ultimately, Seattle made the essential plays on offense and defense. When they erred, such as Darnold missing Rashid Shaheed on a throw that could have sealed the game earlier, the margin for error was considerably wider. For New England, that margin was virtually non-existent. Seattle was simply the superior team. They were the best team in the NFL. That remains the conclusive takeaway. The color commentator's observation resonates profoundly because it echoes my season-long contention. This is what they've been doing all season long, but people were just not watching. There persists a cognitive dissonance preventing many from accepting Seattle's unequivocal supremacy. Our collective consciousness is conditioned to believe the elite echelon must consist of the Los Angeles Rams, New England Patriots, Kansas City Chiefs, Buffalo Bills, or Baltimore Ravens, teams with established quarterback brands and media-anointed coaching staffs, the entities the commentary ecosystem is predisposed to discuss. A prominent analyst himself conceded late in the season, "This team is actually pretty good, but we don't really talk about them that much." The implication is staggering. The media apparatus does not substantively discuss the league's best team. The absurdity is self-evident. This phenomenon is not unique to football. It permeates sports media. Outlets develop entrenched attachments to specific franchises and superstar personas, relentlessly cycling through narratives about them. Formula One, by contrast, operates differently. They have their iconic figure, their LeBron James in Lewis Hamilton. When his performance declined relative to the field, the broadcast focus shifted to the drivers currently excelling. They do not dwell incessantly on what's wrong with Lewis. American football media does not operate with that same present tense fidelity. The Seattle Seahawks were demonstrably the NFL's best team, yet the volume of discourse dedicated to the Kansas City Chiefs offseason or the Dallas Cowboys playoff absence arguably exceeded the analysis of the actual champion. Recall the pervasive sentiment before the playoffs. The Cowboys are the most dangerous team in the NFC. The disconnect between narrative and reality is vast and often humorous. We witnessed a parallel with the Philadelphia Eagles' dominant victory the previous year. In both instances, the public reaction contained an element of bewildered surprise. How did this happen? The answer is elemental. They were the best team in the league during their respective seasons. They possessed great defenses, versatile offenses, and the capacity to win in multiple ways. When such a team faces an opponent clearly operating on a lower tier, the result is a lopsided contest. In prior seasons, when consensus elite teams like the 49ers and Chiefs reached the Super Bowl, the matchup felt preordained. Yet, when a top-seeded team like Seattle or Philadelphia arrives, skepticism lingers. With the Eagles, it was, "They're lucky they didn't face Detroit," or "The real Super Bowl was Bills-Chiefs." This reflects a profound obsession with preconceived conclusions and an inability to assimilate new information fluidly. I must embody this principle of adaptability. Last season, I did not believe the Seahawks were a sufficiently complete team. That assessment provoked frustration among their fan base. Following a playoff loss, the narrative swiftly branded Sam Darnold a pumpkin. I maintained he was a talented player in a flawed situation. Upon his move to Seattle under Clint Kubiak, I immediately identified the Seahawks as a burgeoning force. A critic recently contended that my contrasting perspective against a widely held negative take about Seattle wasn't the dunk I perceived, as the pessimistic view was widely accepted and not really all that controversial. This logic is perilous. The popularity of an opinion is not a validator of its truth. History is replete with catastrophes born from widely accepted but erroneous beliefs. One must be vigilant against such cognitive complacency. In my final Seahawks analysis before the Super Bowl, I stated this team was stacked, but the public failed to recognize it because the names were not the customary superstars. No Chris Jones, Tyreek Hill, or Travis Kelce. The talent was simply configured differently. with players like Jackson Smith and Jigba, and a supporting cast operating within a brilliant coaching structure. The media's disproportionate fascination with Sean McVay, whose visage was omnipresent throughout the Rams' playoff run, compared to the scant camera time afforded to Mike McDonald or Clint Kubiak during the Super Bowl, is indicative of this narrative bias. The broadcast becomes obsessed with crafted storylines and familiar faces. The desired narrative was perceptible last year, a fervent push for a Chiefs three-peat. I recall the palpable discomfort at halftime when the Eagles led substantially. The tenor was one of hopeful anticipation for a Kansas City rally rather than celebration of Philadelphia's dominance. We are witnessing echoes of that now, albeit less aggressively, as I believe the Seahawks enjoyed broader neutral support than the Eagles did. Nonetheless, the foundational bias remains. A prominent analyst admitted the Seahawks were under-discussed, yet the subsequent segment dedicated to them swiftly devolved into a critique of Josh McDaniels, rather than an appreciation of Seattle's comprehensive excellence. This victory transcends the defense or any single unit. It is an organizational triumph. As I emphasized in a previous analysis, from the moment the Eagles' confetti settled last February, the Seahawks commenced a period of flawless operation. They won every single day, through the offseason, the regular season, and the postseason. Every decision was optimal. The Rams, Eagles, Chiefs, and Bills all experienced operational stumbles at various junctures. The Seahawks did not. Their execution was immaculate. Consider the degree of difficulty. Integrating a new franchise quarterback and a brand new offensive coordinator simultaneously is a monumental undertaking. It is not merely inserting a quarterback into an established system. It is constructing an entirely new offensive identity from the ground up. Their primary offensive weapon was a second-year wide receiver. The sheer improbability of this cohesion yielding a championship is staggering. This Seahawks organization demonstrated excellence at every level, on every single day. Even in their regular season losses, they were often the qualitatively better team that faltered due to self-imposed errors. In the Super Bowl, they eliminated those errors and proved their supremacy conclusively. Those are my comprehensive reflections. I am immensely eager to hear your perspectives. What is your paramount takeaway from the Seattle Seahawks championship victory? How do you evaluate the media conversations that have unfolded in its aftermath? Share your thoughts below. I read every single comment. Whether you find yourself in agreement or passionate disagreement, let's engage in discussion, let's debate, but ultimately, let's share in the analytical process. Please consider subscribing to the channel. We are cultivating an exceptional community here, and I would be delighted for you to participate. My objective is to build a space where we feel a genuine collective connection and shared enthusiasm for the sport. I believe we are making significant progress toward that goal. Also, please remember to give this video a thumbs up, as it substantially assists with visibility and distribution within the platform's algorithmic framework. Thank you so much for your time and engagement. I will see you in the next video.